All right, my name is Terry Helm, and I was in the Peace Corps in 1979 through 1981. My country was Thailand. And then after our training, we were sent off in different directions because there were different groups within our group. So some of us were going to be teaching English, some of us were engineers, or doctors, or nurses. So our group that had become very close was split up after 8 weeks, and I was sent north of Bangkok to a town called Pitsanulok, which is closer to Chiang Mai, way up north. And my first assignment was in a fairly large town where there was a school. It was a, what do they call them? Condensed school where they bring kids in from all over the county or from that regional district. So we had 3,000 students in the school, high school age. After being a teacher in this country, teaching there was the most incredible experience of my life. Teachers are called ajans, and they are given tremendous respect. The hardest thing for me to get used to was that my classroom was on a concrete block. There were 6 classrooms in a row, and we had a thatched roof over the top, poles holding up the roof, no doors, no walls except in between classrooms, so it was wide open. So the birds would fly in and other critters would come. We had the resident gecko lizard living on the roof, and 50 students in the room. I came to them, they didn't move. So those 50 students stayed in that room all day long, and I went from classroom to classroom. But as soon as they saw me walking across the compound, one person in that classroom, the head boy or the head girl, would stand up and say, "Stand up," in English. And 50 students, whomp, they were up. And as soon as my foot crossed the threshold, "Good morning, teacher, how are you today?" And I learned very quickly that everything I said was copied exactly. I'm very expressive, obviously, and so I would find my students doing this. Or if I said, "Good morning," they would say, "Good morning." If I threw in a little southern accent, they would start talking like that, and they would say, "Y'all." I had to be so careful and not speak incorrectly. But that was an amazing experience. So that first year, I was teaching English as a second language. And the second year, I was transferred to Pitsanulok, which is in the northeast, closer to the Cambodian border. And even though it was 1980, there were still refugees coming across from the Vietnamese War, and there was still some fighting going on in the jungles. One of my Thai friends was a soldier, and he was always going off to fight in the jungles against the communists. So it was an interesting time period to be there. I remember Rosalind Carter coming and visiting the refugee camps. But then Jimmy lost the next election and Reagan was in. And so my second year, when I was in Korat, I was in charge of a supervisory unit. So instead of teaching kids, I was teaching teachers how to teach English as a second language. And I remember, I'm pretty sure it was in Korat, that second year, I came to work one morning and my Thai supervisor came up to me, just very pale and shaking, and she said, "I need to take you outside and talk with you for a moment. Your president's been shot." Oh no, we can't live through this twice. And she very quickly said, "But he's okay, he's alive. But he's been wounded, and there are warships coming into the Gulf of Tonkin." Oh my gosh, back, I didn't have access to a radio or a television. The only way I got my news was the weekly newspaper from Bangkok Times, and then we all had subscriptions to Newsweek, so I had to wait until the end of the week to get the whole story and to know what was going on. But it was a very scary time for us. another scary time. The king of Thailand has a residence in Korat, and it's quite palatial. I never got to see it, but one day I was on my way on a bus back to Bangkok because it was a Friday and I was planning to meet some friends in Bangkok for the weekend. And so I'm on the bus and I hear all these helicopters flying around. I look up and they're obviously military helicopters, and then the bus driver slams on the brakes and he says, the king is coming. And so everyone on the bus, of course, is going over to the windows to look, and here is this cortege of black limousines going by the bus like 90 miles an hour with the Thai flags flapping in the breeze and all these helicopters. And we thought, well, the king must be going to his palace for his summer vacation, but it wasn't summer. We didn't realize until we got to Bangkok that it was a military coup. It was a military coup, and all of us normally checked in at headquarters in Bangkok anyway, because there was a wonderful library there, the doctor was there, that was a cool place to meet your friends before you went out to your motel or went out to eat or whatever. So I went right to Peace Corps headquarters, and as soon as I walked in, they said, oh, thank God, we know where you are. We were going to have to evacuate you from your village any minute now. So they were trying to get everyone in country to come to Bangkok in case we had to fly home. And there were snipers on top of the buildings. I mean, it was the first time I had been in Bangkok when it wasn't polluted with traffic. It was, the streets were quiet, people were staying home, and it was very fortunate because it turned out to be a bloodless coup, and a few days later the king returned and everything went back to normal. But it was a scary time. Of course, everyone home was getting the news. Oh, you know, it's just horrible, horrible. So my family was absolutely frantic. And I'm in a motel room with 6 other people sharing one bed because that was the only way they could put us all up. So we had one great big slumber party while this coup was going on, and our families were worried sick about us. The language, oh. Thai language has 5 different tones, which is very difficult for most Westerners to try to understand. So a simple word like ma can mean 5 different things if you say it the wrong way. Well, I picked that one because ma can be dog or mother or doctor. So we created quite often very funny situations because we would be struggling with the tone and trying to be polite and calling someone doctor when we were actually calling them a dog. And the Thai people, bless their hearts, are very patient with us struggling with their language, but you could often see this little twitch, you know, in mouths because they knew that we were actually trying to say this word instead of that word. But oh, it was very difficult. And I was fortunate that I actually passed the oral exam before they turned me loose to go on my teaching career, because I really didn't get it at all. I'm more of a visual person, and trying to learn those tones was extremely difficult. I wanted to have it written down on a piece of paper so that I could just memorize the words, but it didn't work that way. And so I struggled through my oral exam, and finally the Thai teachers went, let her go, she's going to be teaching English anyway. So most everyone went to speak English with her, and that turned out to be quite true. So I was blessed. I knew how to ask for the bus station, the train station, how much is a motel room, and I could order my food. And that was basically all I really needed to be able to do, because as soon as they knew I was the teacher, it was, speak English with me, please. The respect. I would go to the market. Oh, this was wonderful. I could go to the market and spend $1 and have more food to eat than is imaginable. So it was just a thrill to go to the marketplace and buy fresh things, pineapple already cut up in a bag, corn on the cob, dripping with butter, and they would just hand it to you, and you just walk around eating it with this stick, you know, like a lollipop. Barbecued chicken, and of course hundreds of different kinds of rice, and just, the pungent chilies, wonderful food. But what I loved before I even got to the food was walking into the market area, and everyone, it was like the parting of the Red Seas. Ajahn, Ajahn. The respect. It was just amazing. And then it was so difficult to come home and readjust to being a teacher in our country as compared to there. It was huge, huge adjustment. The other thing that was fun was the older Thai women, they would come up to me and touch my skin. And they would be upset with me if I got too tan. They would say, no, 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 you should be white as you can be. And they would want to touch my skin and see, you know, if the white or the brown came off, whichever. And they would always want to touch my hair. I'm 5'6", and I was one of the tallest women around in my village. So I felt oftentimes like I was being looked up to anyway, just because of my height. So that was another major adjustment, was coming home and realizing I wasn't that tall. There are lots of people taller than I am. That was an interesting experience. Just learning to live in another culture and maintain my own identity was a huge lesson. And right away when we were in training, that came home very clearly, because one of the women in our training group was a retired missionary from China. She was extremely religious, and she had spent her whole life being a missionary. But while she was in China, she refused to learn how to speak Chinese because she thought that was paganistic. So she, for whatever reason, decided to join Peace Corps. Well, I shouldn't say for whatever reason. She wanted to teach and preach while she was in Thailand. But that goes totally against the grain of Peace Corps. So when we started our language learning in country, and she refused to go to the classes. So I think we were in country a week when they handed her airline ticket one way home. So I was impressed with that, because that's what Peace Corps is all about, is learning from the other culture as well as the giving. And I think if I didn't teach that much, I learned a whole lot more than I taught, I think.